left the yard. He just parks it out there. And it's like,
Are we talking about Sears Center Park?
but he's got his.
Is this
He's earned himself
on the
an
agenda
apple.
today,
I've
or-
never tried to use one of those.
maybe under the
but-
updates or?
Well, baseball.
And
Yeah,
cheese.
because I knew it was gonna be a long.
Good afternoon, everybody.
I just
Welcome to the work session for the Sierra Vista City Council for April 26, 2022. I'll call the meeting to order. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the April 28th agenda. And obviously, we call to order that meeting. We do the roll call with invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. We'll have the Girl Scouts here to help us with the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll do the acceptance of the agenda. We'll have the city manager's report. Is there anything that the city manager would like to cover before Thursday's meeting?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Mayor. Chuck is only out for the afternoon, so he'll be here Thursday.
Okay. All right, and please, if you have questions for specifically for Chuck, grab him in the office. He'll be around. Consent agenda, we have the discussion of possible action for regular city council meeting minutes. Any additions, corrections for the minutes of April 14th, 2022? Any comments? Okay. And then we have the other item on the consent agenda is a discussion possible action for pre-annexation agreement on 203 Theater Drive. Matt, would you talk to us about that, please?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is a single-family property on Theater Drive in the Fry Townsite neighborhood. The owner is seeking to access funding consideration for emergency home repairs. A prerequisite to being considered is that he enter a pre-annexation agreement with the city. Standard, we're collecting pre-annexation agreements in that neighborhood, which, as you know, is a proactive annexation area. And at some point in the near future, we hope to bring forward a petition for your consideration that includes not only this pre-annexation agreement, but others in the vicinity of this property for formal incorporation consideration.
I had, when I looked at the map on Exhibit A, I couldn't really tell whether this current property borders any other properties that are in the city or any other properties that already have a pre-annexation agreement.
Mr. Mayor, we did look at the map that we've been updating as these pre-annexation agreements get signed, as well as previously expressed interest. And there are properties, again, in the vicinity that either have expressed interest or we have a signed pre-annexation agreement on. And so that's why I intimated that we would likely be bringing forward a petition for your consideration probably sometime later this year.
My specific question is, does this property currently border a city boundary?
It does not. I don't have the exhibit in front of me.
I can't tell from looking at the exhibit, so I'm not sure you could either.
Hello, Mayor Mueller, members of council. For this specific property, 203 Theater Drive, it is not adjacent to city boundary, and so that is why it cannot be readily annexed.
Okay.
And any adjacent boundaries, I believe we don't have any pre-annexation agreements for any
The other
of those.
properties either?
No.
So this one will be a while?
So yes, it's just an active project, yes.
Okay, that answers my question, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
And from what I'm reading, it's basically for a sewer hookup, is that correct?
It's for the emergency home repair program.
Yeah.
Oh, there were a couple in the exhibits where it says site address, it says units A and B, but it's single family.
That is correct,
there
yes. It is,
more?
well, its current zoning designation, Councilmember Humphrey, is MH72. So if annexed, the property would become our manufactured home residential zoning designation. And there's currently only one structure. It's a stick-built home on that property.
So it would be one domicile, it wouldn't be an apartment? I think that's what the question is.
Oh yeah, just why does it say units A and B on the two exhibits?
Understood. Councilmember Humphrey, Mayor Mueller, that is something that was recorded with the Cochise
Oh.
County addressing, but from what it currently looks like, it looked like it is a single occupancy house.
It is, okay, yeah, because I actually pass it on my way here every time. Okay, that clears it up, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Mueller. It just, I don't know who to ask. Can the homeowner back out of the agreement? Like, if it, let's say a year from now, we still don't have annexation paperwork and everything processed, can the landowner then back out, or is there a reason the landowner could back out of the annexation process?
No, once the annexation agreement is signed and accepted, it gets recorded and it survives changes in ownership. In
Okay.
fact, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Benning, as part of the agreement, we also have durable power of attorney that
That's
they
what I was
also
gonna ask
sign as
next.
well.
Thank you.
I would just add that it always makes me happy to see these
Yes.
pre-annexations out of Fry, and not just because I'm
Yes.
representing the city, but as their neighbor. And I see some of these folks at our Carmichael meetings at the school. It's, you know, it's weird they're your neighbors, they're Sierra Vistans, but they don't get to vote. They don't get to take advantage of these programs, and they're gonna save. Like, I know that property in particular will probably save a couple hundred in taxes over the year, just becoming a citizen, resident. So, just wanted to add that.
There are a lot of advantages becoming
I agree.
annexing into the city, so, thank you. Anybody,
Thank you, Mr.
any other
Mayor.
questions on this item?
Thank you.
When I was
Ma'am.
going through, I just had a concern. So it was saying that because they're wanting to apply for the emergency home repair program, and it's gonna be a little bit, it's gonna be a while. So I'm kind of like, well, are they okay? Are they gonna be okay until in the future that happens?
Okay. The annexation will be in a while.
Mayor Mueller,
home
Councilmember
repair.
Landry, as part of an agreement that was included with the clause for the pre-annexation, there is a clause specifically that would allow them to apply for our emergency home repair program. So that is
Okay,
included in
For
the
that
agreement.
program, we consider them being in the city.
Okay,
I
thanks.
think it's the annexation is gonna take a while because
Okay,
you
okay.
gotta wait for more.
Okay.
And just for your information, we can provide you a link to our current web map that shows the properties within Town site that have signed a pre-annexation agreement or previously expressed interest, and we're continually to update that as we engage with those property owners just to make sure that they continue to be interested in annexation.
Yes, please.
And we appreciate that's a full-time job, and yeah, I think it's important for both the city and the future annexee to pursue that, so, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else for item 2.2, we'll go to new business, and it's resolution 2022-21, authorizing the city to accept a grant from the Arizona State Parks and Grants, and that is Sharon, you gonna do this?
It's going to be me today.
Okay.
Irene is unfortunately
gonna
out
be later,
sick,
okay.
but she will be here on Thursday.
Ready?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this project will accept a grant from the Arizona State Parks Non-Motorized Grant Program with funding through the American Rescue Plan Act. The project will construct a stabilized pathway and other associated amenities such as handicap ramps. The new pathway will connect an existing pathway around Eddie Sear Park to another existing pathway just south of Cayetan Drive and adjacent to Soldier Creek Linear Park. The pathway will also provide for pedestrian access from the new public parking lot being constructed on North Avenue. And you can see on your screen here, the new pathway is shown in orange, and the new parking lot at the site of the former Public Works facility and Animal Control facility is in blue. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Yes, sir.
Quick question, it can be for either one of y'all. Which one's gonna be finished first, the parking lot or the bike path, multi-use path? And the reason I'm asking, I don't want,
The money for the path.
we're just getting the money, right? I don't wanna start building the path and then build a parking lot and mess up the path.
Well, they're already grading the parking lot.
You're grading it, but,
Yeah.
so they're gonna wait until that's, we'll wait until that's done and then do the,
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Benning, as you can see on here, and that's an excellent question. The pathway breaks across the entrance to the new parking lot. So ideally, the work's going to be coordinated. It all takes place at the same time. Folks aren't getting in each other's way. But at least with this break across here and that being the responsibility of the contractor that's building the parking lot, there shouldn't be any conflicts between the two.
Okay. And thank you, because it's a well-needed path to finish that.
Okay, anything else?
Just the terminology, like scupper. I had to look up what a scupper was. So I know what all the pictures online looks like. What it comes out of from your roof off to a little concrete thing.
Yeah.
So what does it look like on a big path? It's basically the same thing,
It's the same.
just bigger.
It's not coming off a roof in
Right.
this case, but what it looks like is it's a concrete structure that carries water underneath the pathway. So from the side, it looks like a rectangle,
Okay.
and it basically takes water underneath the pathway so that it doesn't wash over the top of it.
Thank you.
Like a miniature
In case anybody reads this and wants to know what a scupper is, I had to look it up.
Sharon, I just, this is not really dealing with the pathway, but two things with the parking lot. One is from the looking at the detention basin by the parking lot. I don't see anything that says where it's going to drain to. Does it drain from that would be the southwest corner of and then into the creek, or where's that going to go?
Mr. Mayor, I'd have to confirm with the construction plans for the parking lot, but I would assume it drains either the direction you've indicated or it could go directly into the wash to the west there.
Well, yeah.
But the outlet would be protected such that it would not.
Well, and the reason I ask that is because if we're going to put a park facility of some type, playground facility on this picture it would be the northeast. We just need to make sure we're taking care of the drainage as well as our one service building that's already there. I think I've discussed with you or some of your folks already, or maybe it was the Parks Director, that little service building's got a large area to the east that is usually not being used, and that fence line needs to probably change a little bit so we can have more area for park when we get to that. So I just, future notes.
Thank
Okay.
you very much. Yes, I'll confirm with staff that the outlet has been accounted for.
Okay. Anything else?
Sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll next go on to resolution 0222022. Approval of Industrial Development Authority, the City of Sierra Vista Economic Bond Series. And I'm looking for a couple of guys. Who's gonna do this one?
They're not here.
You're not here.
Frank had a medical appointment last minute.
So this is the manager. We got anybody that can explain this to us?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any information on this item.
Okay.
It looks to me like it's similar to previous ones, but Mayor Pro Tem
Sure,
can.
I'll do my best.
Well, the other thing is, would it be a problem if we moved it for 2 weeks?
Yes, they have to close.
We
everything.
table it.
Declaring an emergency.
Yeah.
So we're declaring an emergency, so
So it's.
explain, please explain.
Sure, it is the project, and we can call Mike Slania if we need to, the attorney. But this is just an extension of the first Georgetown bond that we did, remember, a few months ago that we did with the IDA. The opportunity became available for them to acquire some of the surrounding property for the same purpose. So they were able to get authorization for another $15 million to acquire the property and build. And so this is just extending that bond up to another $15 million. And it's in, I believe, Seattle.
50
Seattle.
or 5? 50 or 5?
15, up to 15.
See that? I'm sorry. But
This is that same area south
David?
of Seattle, right?
Come up, please.
because
Mayor, members of council, Mayor Pro Tem Gray explained the project I'll explain the IDA bond situation. Under federal law, the city council must approve IDA bonds issued by the IDA in its authority, even though you appoint because you appoint the board members. However, the city has no financial responsibility for the bonds. It's not on the hook for the bonds in any way, shape, or form. It is just so that you are aware of and can determine whether or not this is a project that you wish your IDA to do. That's the only item that you have to do with this, is whether or not you agree with the project. And that goes back to an issue that happened in years past in an area, and the federal representative did not like the project and put this through federal law to make sure that the city councils could control what the project was happening in their community. So that's the legal side of it. So.
Yep.
And I guess we'll leave it on the agenda, and hopefully Frank will be healthy enough to be here. I know he's had some serious health issues in the past, so
I think he'll be able to be here
hopefully he's
Thursday night.
okay.
And the revenue is just gonna go to the same project? Okay.
Yeah, well, and the
I mean,
IDA will get
the
their share as
IDA's
well.
share, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, then we finish with the call to the public and comments and requests of council. And then, of course, is the adjournment. And that should finish the first item for today's agenda. So next is the item B, the 22-23 budget review personnel, the operations and maintenance. Yes, ma'am.
There you go.
Mayor and members of council, I'm here for our second exciting budget presentation of the year. As we shared in the last work session, we will continue to project revenue growth conservatively, and I just want to reiterate that all the revenue numbers today are just estimates, and we'll continue to revise it as we get more data in. So today we will discuss general fund revenue, highlights and personnel changes, as well as a brief overview of the requested O&M budget. So we will begin with the general fund. The general fund is the largest fund, comprising approximately of 45% of the city's budget. We will discuss enterprise funds more in depth at the next work session. So the general fund pays for many of the services that the departments provide, such as the administration, police, fire, leisure and library, community development, and the non-enterprise public works such as fleet, facilities, and engineering. So the revenue sources that make up the general fund are mostly listed on this slide, but we'll go into it further on the following slides.
Before you go, any better idea from the last time that you spoke to us about when we're gonna know about state shared revenue, whether that is individual, whether that's income tax or whether that's sales tax?
Well, yes, it's in the slides.
Works. We don't know anything better yet.
We have a little bit of numbers, but we still need to look through it a little further.
Final projection. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
So local sales tax is being projected at a 7.5% increase from fiscal year 22's actuals. So this amount does include internet sales, and just as a reminder, there's a 2-month lag in data, so we'll see March's numbers in May and April's in June. So we'll continue to analyze the incoming data and adjust the projection for the final budget as needed. So property tax levy rate is proposed at 0.1098. That means that a property owner is expected to pay $10.98 per 100,000 on a home. This levy can be adopted without a truth in taxation hearing and a published notice. So the increase in property tax is due to new construction. That's at $1,923. Fees and permits that consist of building permits, ACO fees, and right-of-way permits and franchise fees. That increase is based on actuals from fiscal year 22. Charges for service, we'll go over it more in the next slide, but it looks at approximately $182,000 increase. Sale of assets or auction items, that was kept level with fiscal year 22. Other fund services or in-kind revenue from transit and MPO, and that was kept level with fiscal year 22 as well. All other category is a catch-all. It's CPR classes, public record fees, visitor center sales, and that we kept level as well. As promised, here are the charges of services, and it's about $182,000 increase overall. The breakdown consists of general government, which is printing, duplicating lease revenue as it's stated, and we based it off actuals for fiscal year 22. Public safety for the ambulance fees, ACO, special police services were increased based on actuals for fiscal year 22, and then we also projected increased revenue from the new EMS substation. Community developments with abatements, vacant home registration and planning revenue, we kept it level based on actuals. Public works with fuel sales, labor charges, and GMC revenue increased a little bit based on actuals. Leisure and library is probably one of the hardest. Fiscal year 22 was a good year coming out of COVID, so it'll be difficult to predict this first year post-pandemic. So the revenues were based on actuals, but the majority of the decrease that you see here is because of Kids World.
Jen, before you go on, general government, we got inflation everywhere else in the economy. We just need to have a discussion sometime about whether that 20,000, keeping it flat, is appropriate.
Yes.
Or accurate. Also, community development, if in the next year, hopefully, knock on wood, we'll start having more home inspections and those type of things, and that may incur more costs. So I just throw that one out to you as another one to just relook and see if there's something else we need to do. Any other comments or questions on the slide?
Yeah, mine was also about community development because we, in our budget book, in our last budget book, it went from 28 to 68,000, and when I had asked David, it was something about classifying things different. But we also, is that also the change for the impact fees that, didn't they go into effect like a year ago again? Is
Mayor,
that?
Councilmember Humphrey, no, the impact fees are separate funds. They have to be put in separate funds for legal reasons. Some of the classification is to, when you get a building permit, you're given a certain number of inspections which are included. The building permit revenue has gone up. Hopefully with fee increases, some of the developers, and I think Matt can agree, have been doing a better job with their plan, so we have not had to charge as many third and fourth and fifth inspections that we've had to before. Those are separate fees and tend to go in the other areas. But because we include a certain number of inspections with the initial site plan building permit, I think the developers have done a better job.
Then the mayor's probably right. We should probably be projecting a higher number.
Well, the thing is, and that, I don't know what you would base that on. It's just like inflation. We may have some national numbers. We probably don't have local numbers.
Right.
So
The
it makes it a
building
little
permits,
tougher.
yeah, the building permits are considered a permit license, not a fee for service.
Okay.
A fee for service is where you pay to get something specific, like an ambulance ride, an animal control type thing. That is considered the fee for service. Where like a business license, a permit to build something, those are considered a separate classification for accounting purposes.
All right.
So the we do have building permit fees going up quite a bit.
Revenue, yeah, got it.
Mayor.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. Jen, you said that the decrease was mostly due to Kids World. Is that lower participation? Is that what you mean? So there's less revenue? What?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gray. We have seen a change in behavior for especially after school care and the summer programs from our area families. And I've talked to Jay over at Boys and Girls Club about this too. And it could be parents have more flexibility in their hours. They may not need care. We may have a problem with some more latchkey kids. We're just not really sure right now, but that area is not recovering nearly as fast as we were hoping that it would. Our summer programs are used to, as an example, having around 240 children in the summer. We had 40 last summer. And we don't know really what we're gonna see now. So
And we won't for a couple of years. I mean, until people start kind of getting back to normal
Yes, ma'am.
way of doing things. Okay. Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Rodriguez. Oh, wait, you were first. Go ahead, bro. Just a quick question. How does that affect our staff when it comes to leisure? You know, are we able to still rotate them like we did through COVID? Like, you know, so we don't have to cut staff, or is that just something we have to do? Or is that looking that way when it comes to the program like that?
Thank you, Councilmember Rodriguez. We have not cut any staff. We have expanded our services actually from just Kids World into a division called Child and Family Programming. That's where you see our rec and roll programs in the parks, things like that, more interaction. Our staffing levels have naturally decreased in kind, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. We don't like to see that, but we would have trouble staffing anyway. Right now, we can take up to a maximum of 100 children in our after-school programs. We consolidated to a single site. The school buses them to Bella Vista so that we don't have to have multiple footprints. And right now, we're just operating leanly on what we have. We don't really have any needs for additional staff. We're kind of right-sized for the demand right now.
So it's no longer what you come out and Bella Vista, they're all just at Bella Vista?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Petty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just gonna say, I appreciate the conservative number for
Yeah, she
Oh,
did. There we
for
go.
leisure and library services. But I do think it's gonna be higher than that 790. Just look at the trends with what's going on with our aquatics program, the different types of youth programs. They're not just filling up, they're doubling what we anticipated for some of them, so. But I do like the conservative forecast, so thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add a little bit to that too. I think unfortunately on that, and that was a good comment, Councilmember Benning, what is missed in there is where Laura and her department are increasing revenue. Unfortunately, that Kids World is a hit.
Yeah.
But as Laura said too, there's also decreased staffing costs and so on. So there are areas within Parks and Rec and libraries that are certainly increasing revenue.
Yes, ma'am.
Intergovernmental revenue is all the state shared revenue numbers. So we're still evaluating the state projections, but we want to be conservative. So right here, the fiscal year 23 projections are the final fiscal year 22's numbers from the league. So that is the sales tax and the income tax. These do include the updated estimates based on the correct population, not the old population. Vehicle licensing tax is increased based off actuals. The grants line is just general fund grants. This is not the general, or it's not the grants fund itself. So you'll see that later on. And that's predominantly like DUI task force and the vests that we're expecting no change. So we kept it level for fiscal year 23. Local government payments is the Fort Huachuca ambulance contract, which is still in process. So we kept it level at this time.
Can you go back one slide real quick?
One more?
Thank you. One more?
You want one more?
Okay, thank you.
So that's the summary of the revenue. Now we move on to personnel.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to jump in real quick on personnel. So Chuck and Barbara and I sat down on Friday and we reviewed the market survey data that HR has been working on for the past few months, and it came back worse than we expected in terms of how many other communities are giving raises, how many are giving significant raises. And so what Barbara presented to us was a number that would put us at about the average of what 22 other cities that HR looked at salary-wise. So unfortunately, the trend has continued, again, of significant salaries around the state. So Jen's going to tell you what those numbers mean, and Barbara's also here if you have any other questions.
Go ahead, I'll let you go first.
So the numbers is a 2% step increase in July for full-time and part-time. Also a 4% market increase in July for full-time and part-time, with a 2% step in January of 2023 for both full-time and part-time, which will increase the personnel number approximately 2.75 million over fiscal year 22's numbers. keep in mind this does include the new personnel requests that are listed below.
Okay, before I let him speak, I just want to make sure we're clear here. We did a 2% step increase in July, or we've already voted on an increase for July 22.
No,
This-
Mr. Mayor,
This is in addition.
this is in addition to the mid-year market shift that council
Okay,
approved
when did
in
we do the
February.
mid-year market shift?
Last month.
When was it effective is what I want to know.
It was effective 2 week, or the next payday after it was approved.
And that was a
That was a
4%.
4% market shift.
4% market share. So now, the 2% was, that's also something we discussed earlier.
No, Mr. Mayor.
So this is new.
Well, we were gonna look back at it
Kind of
and
this,
seeing what the data was.
yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
the 2% step increase, that's the annual step increase we do every year.
Well, we don't necessarily do a step increase every year. Yeah.
But that's why she's coming up with that, from what I read and looked up. So the part that would be new is the 4% market increase, and then, of course, a mid-year.
And then the mid-year, yeah.
But
Yeah, I know the mid-year was new and we were talking about a 4%
Roger.
this year.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead. You got the floor.
I'm gonna ask Ms. Barbara to come in, because I know she's gonna explain. If we do this 242 or 422, however you wanna call it, our pay plan 200, grade 1, where will we be at hourly?
So if we take where we're at right now and we add 6% to that, which is the 4 and the 2,
Yes, ma'am.
that's going to put us right at $15 an hour on what we call grade 200.
Okay,
Grade 200 is our entry level
Entry level.
salary.
okay.
Correct.
So with the class comp, looking at everyone we looked at, what was the lowest hourly rate among cities, not counting ours, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't have every single city, but we got responses back we came forward in January about mid-year. This is the first time ever, at least in the last 10 years, and I think in discussions with Chuck, that we've ever brought forward a mid-year salary increase. We were finding that we were extremely behind on the salaries. At that time, we reached out to a number of cities, and their response was a lot of them, in fact, 9 of the 16 that we have now, also did mid-year as made number 10. This is not the total number. These are the ones that responded to us. We reached back out to those again, and we got additional responses this time. So we got a total of 22 responses. And of those, I think this gets to your question, most all of them are increasing again July 1. Of those, 6 have increased not by percentages, but they took their minimums. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They range from a minimum starting wage of $15 is the minimum, and $16.91 is the high end of their minimum starting. The rest are looking at percentages like we're looking at. The average percentage for July of 2022, increasing because we're all sharing the same fiscal year, is 4.4%. And so that is a 4.4% market shift. And again, that's in addition to the average of the mid-year shift within the same municipal governments was 3.2%. That puts their total at 7.6% total for that. And we are looking, as Victoria said, after discussions with Chuck, she and I, we are looking to reach somewhere in the middle of that, in the mid-range of that. And that is what the proposal that Jen's giving you forward is. Did I get your question answered?
Yes, ma'am. And so on that, roughly, with the increase, so we're about 13.20, 13.30 30 right now with the 4% we just gave for a minimum grade, pay 2,200 grade 1.
Yeah, we were at 1365-ish. We did a 4% that went into effect immediately afterwards, the next payday. That put us up at 1413.
Okay.
What we need from 1413 ultimately to get to 15 is 6% and some decimal point. That because 1413 we need another 87 cents to get to $15 an hour. So that is where she's got the 4 and the 2 from, is for us getting to the $15, and that would be a 4% market shift, shifting on market July 1, 2023. An additional market shift, shifting on market, be January 1, 2023. The 4 and the 2 makes that 6% market shift. So we would reach the $15 an hour minimum would be January 2023 as proposed. And then the 2% step increase is the performance and tenure increase. It was implemented in 2016 with the class and comp. The council has given the 2% step increase every year since the class and comp implemented in 16. This will be, we had one prior market shift before we came in 2022. So we did a 2% market shift in 2019. That was our first actual market shift that was done since implementation of the new class and comp in 2016. The second market shift was approved mid-year this year, kind of an urgent situation, that was 4%. So this technically will be the third request for a market shift, divided into 2 portions going forward. And I know that they are relatively quick, that they are fast, and that it is a large percentage. It is what it's coming out in order for us to maintain market.
Well, what worries me, I mean, I agree with the 6.2 or the 2.42. What worries me is if this inflation stuff where we're deciding between, and I'm talking entry-level workers, deciding between gas and food with everything going on, if we don't do something, one, we're not going to be competitive again. Right. But 2, I mean, what worries me is if we give something high or give something and then inflation goes back down, things come back down to normal, are we going to be, I mean, everyone's going to be in the same boat, so, but I think Arizona's going to go to $15 minimum wage soon anyway.
Well, we got, what you're really looking at is trying to guess the market.
Exactly.
The labor market. And I don't know how you can do that.
I don't either, but
I don't know how you can do that. I admit that I'm a little uncomfortable with that too.
But the problem also turns in, we're asking these, I mean, it's their money, but we're taking it out of their paycheck. We're asking them to pay 13% ASRS. So
that's the retirement investment.
I understand, but at the same time, if I can go to Walmart and make the same money or more, it's going to be hard getting quality people in my mind. I think we see that with Cecom and what we're getting on the applicants that we're getting for certain positions. I just think our market needs to be competitive and be there.
Well, you're also, we're talking initial entry folks basically, here, okay? And as skills are required and the pay scales go up, obviously we become more competitive when you talk about places like Walmart, et cetera. But they're still going to have those same costs that we're worried about.
We're next.
So
Mark was next.
Mark's next.
Oh, just a quick one. Thank you for your explanation so far. When it comes to our 13 or so people in our city that are stepped out, right, or so, what is the difference for? How does it affect them for the difference between a market shift and a step increase? If you can't get a step increase, right? So now what will happen to those people?
Correct. So a step increase only goes as far as the steps go, and they're all equal within the class and comp. So when you reach max, you can't step any further, so you're maxed out. When there is a market shift, which is what happened in February, it's also the proposal that's in front of you. It takes the entire pay scale and it moves it forward by the percentage of the market shift. So if we move forward 4%, the minimum is going up 4% and the maximum is going up 4%, and obviously everything in between there. Right. And so they would increase 4%. because of the market shift is 4%. 4% would put them back at maximum. There would not be another increase until another market shift for them. In other words, they don't qualify for the step increases by design.
Yeah, so they get 4 instead of 8.
Okay.
And if there was another 2% market shift, they would go up 2%. They will go up the exact percentage of a market shift,
Okay.
because that's where the maximum would move.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Johnson.
So, just to clarify the slide that we're looking at, I see a 2% step increase in January, and I don't see the 4% that you're asking for in July of next year, or July of '23.
Yeah, okay. So, on the screen that's in front of us, the 2% step increase in July, that would be the step that we put forward every year as implemented in the class and comp. That's a 10-year performance. The 4% market increase July 22nd, July of 2022, sorry.
This year.
That would be the one that would be going into effect for everybody. That would be a full market shift. The 2%, it says a step, but that's a typo. This would be a 2% market increase January of 2023. So it should read step market.
Okay.
There is a typo there. Apologize for that.
Okay. If we do these steps and do these market increases, what percentage is that going to put us as far as competing towns, for lack of a better term, or similarly situated municipalities?
Correct. We're going to have a little bit of variables, obviously, in the positions, and the dust is going to have to settle a little bit later. But we are looking at, for our most comparable cities and the majority of our positions, we are looking at sitting right back as close to the 100% mark as we can. And I cannot get that exact on the positions,
I understand that
but
part.
that's as close as possible to the 100% mark.
Okay. That answers my
Any
question.
other questions? Did you have one?
Not about the class and comp, more about the personnel requests, so I'll
Go ahead.
wait.
Yeah, that's my question. I'm just curious first of all, Jen, you said these positions were in that number that we're seeing as well, right?
The personnel request.
The personnel requests are already factored in?
Yes, the
Okay.
increase of the 2.75 does include the personnel request listed here. And I also wanted to point out that that increase does reflect all funds. So it's personnel in all funds, not just general fund.
So enterprise everything?
Everything.
Okay. And I have more that wasn't
Keep
finished.
going.
Chief Thrasher, what is a civilian police investigator?
So this position would be a position that would handle our background investigations, liquor license investigations, and our internal administrative investigations.
So when you say civilian, he doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be a sworn officer,
Doesn't
it
have
would
to be
be
a
a
sworn officer, got
PSPRS
it.
position, and it would take the load off of our 5 major crimes detectives in terms of they can handle the regular
Easier
caseload.
to recruit.
ASRS.
I'm sorry, ASRS,
Yes.
right.
So that would be part of the Arizona retirement, not
Yes,
PSPRS?
exactly.
Okay. And those are all my questions.
Yeah, actually, that covered a couple of mine. And then I also want to know about the community service officer. I'm assuming it's under PD.
Yes, it is under the PD. So these are also civilian positions that would be able to respond to calls for service that do not require a sworn officer to investigate. Currently, as you know, we're having a very difficult time recruiting police officers. And the training time, of course, with the academy and the post requirements and those kind of things cause an issue. We're hoping that we'd be able to fill these a little bit quicker, and then they would be able to handle those calls for service, public assists, private property accidents, those type of things to take the load off some of the patrol officers.
So, if you don't mind, what kind of qualifications would they have to meet?
So they would have to meet the same background qualifications, but they would not have to meet the physical fitness, and they would not have to go to the academy.
Okay.
And they would not
the
require
college
the college education.
Okay.
They would be a high school diploma and 18 years old would be
Okay,
the
great.
minimum qualifications. So there's two aspects with these positions that we could use them for. Obviously, we could get some experienced people there that that can't meet the physical requirements necessarily of a police officer, but also can be a training ground for kids right out of high school that can come in and sort of like what the sheriff's office has with detention officers. And they can serve in those positions while they work on their college degree and get to be 21 years old, and then they can come into those positions. Very similar to our old police assistant and cadet positions we used to have.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You had mentioned, Chief, earlier that we've had a hard time getting sworn officers into our fold, and we're losing through retirement and transition others. What incentives do we have for officers when we hire them and train them? Are they sworn to stay with us for a certain number of years, or because I know other departments are offering incentives with help with mortgage and things of that nature to recruit sworn officers. What are we doing?
So we do not have any bonuses offered. We do not have those type of things. It is, and I truly believe, to be quite honest with you, sir, that if you offer a bonus for new hires, you better be offering bonuses for retention. Otherwise, you're going to lose people quicker that way. That's my personal opinion. But in terms of the salaries is a big thing. The take-home cards is a big issue. In the county, we are the highest paid in the county at the moment, besides DPS. So our recruitment is mainly in the county, and we always have had a difficult time recruiting from Tucson and Phoenix because of those other things. So basically, they come into the service to PD. They have the take-home car, which they are allowed to use off-duty, as well, and to be able to respond to calls and that type of stuff. But beyond that, it's pretty normal and standard.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I did, but he asked it, Mr. Mayor, so thank you.
All right.
Oh, are we gonna go over the PSPRS? We usually do in this
During the budget briefing? Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll talk about it, maybe not today, I don't remember seeing
I
it.
don't know.
We normally
For
get
the
numbers
balanced
and
budget.
projections on that.
For the balance
Mayor,
budget,
members of council, David will actually have a separate presentation for you on PSPRS. That was something that came up earlier in the year that you had requested.
All right.
personnel requests that made it through the first pass are in consideration for the final budget: the drafter technician, transit driver, the civilian police investigator, and the community service officer, 2 of those. And I did have a note in there that those are ASRS positions. A part-time animal care attendant, EMS supervisor, which will be funded through the Fort IGSA, account clerk, which is paid 50% through the refuse fund and 50% through sewer, and IT support coordinator.
And, we were all raising our hands. I don't know.
Go ahead, ladies first.
You're
Thank
confusing the
you.
mayor.
When you say EMS supervisor for the ambulance contracts, so they'll be on Fort Huachuca, or where is this person?
Jeez,
He's
biting at the bit. I got it.
Mayor Mueller, Councilman Humphrey, the EMS supervisor, if put in the budget, will be stationed at Station 4. And the reason they'll be stationed at Station 4 is because of access on the post.
Okay.
And they'll be able to supervise the crews at Station 4.
Right, okay, thank you.
Get the young guy first, then the old guy.
All right, thank you. That's you. Oh. All right.
The better looking guy.
We talked about David's report later on. When it comes to business like this, how hard would it be to look at what ASRS versus PSPRS is for those positions, right? How hard would it have to get those numbers? Can we get that for that report? Can we include that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just want to see that. I've never seen it. Don't know where to find it. I've looked.
We can give you a breakdown.
He is
Yes.
just go straight ASRS.
Want to see both. Thank you.
Ms. Humphrey asked my question, so thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, back to you.
Okay. We also have a few reclassifications that are under review, and you'll see it later on with the balanced budget in the final. So moving on to requested O&M. This is the requested O&M as of now. We are still working through all the department requests, and we expect this number to definitely change for the balanced budget. So keep in mind the allocations are not included in this number, and allocations to enterprise funds are calculated at a later time.
And when will we see a list of the projects?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, you'll see those at either the balanced budget or the budget work sessions in June. One note I wanted to throw in on O&M, why the numbers are so significantly different from fiscal year 22 and 23. Going back a number of years before the recession, there was a change during the recession in how we budgeted capital projects. And so a large part of the increase here is moving some operating capital expenses back into the general fund. Some of the things we've moved back this year would include some parks replacement equipment, some AED and gurney replacements for fire, some design projects. So quite a bit of that increase is actually moving capital back in. And so you would receive a list of what those items are again at a future presentation. And we're also still going through the department and division budgets.
She answered it. Yeah. We're gonna get a breakout of O&M, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
So next steps in the process is to meet with each department and work through the O&M budgets, finish personnel numbers, and finalize the revenue projections. We will work to balance the enterprise and all the remaining funds. And then we have more exciting budget meetings to follow. So May 10th, you're going to have your balanced budget where you have your breakdowns of O&M and all the capital items. So you'll have a better picture. May 27th, we'll have a tentative budget book. 6 through 8 in June will be our one-on-one sessions. June 13 through 15 are the budget work sessions. June 23rd is your tentative vote. 28 is your final vote in the property tax hearing. And August 11th is your property tax vote. So we're not quite done yet.
Questions, comments, discussion? Yes, sir.
We said property tax is .1048, right?
The property
That's
tax.
not changing?
The property tax levy is
The levy?
.1098.
1098, okay.
Yes.
My question, so can we start putting out to the public, the June 13th through 15th, so we have more participations than we normally do? I don't know if we can.
Talking about the public hearing?
Okay.
Yes.
And that's the only question I have, Mr. Mayor. I think it looks good on my end. Thank you, sir.
I'm going to open the meeting to the public in case we have any questions today from the audience. I don't see anybody jumping up real quick, so thank you very much, and I'll close the meeting to the public. Jen, thank you for your presentation today. Still got a lot of work. Okay, the next is item C, the council executive report. Madam Assistant City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Our apologies for such a long report, but it does include an additional month. It is January, February, and March, so I hope you enjoyed reading approximately 50 pages of all of the work that staff has been hard at work doing and accomplishing. One of the things I wanted to point out that isn't specifically in here, but it is in Chuck's message in the beginning, is the amount of hard work that's been going into grant applications and appropriations requests, and that is a precursor to something you're going to see in an upcoming budget work session, where our grants fund, please expect that to be significantly higher than it was this year, which I know brought a lot of questions to begin with. But budgeting for those potential grants and potential appropriations, if we were to get them. So please expect that number to be significantly significantly higher than this year. So, but I want to commend our staff for all the hard work they've been putting in on those applications and requests already. Everybody is here if you have any questions on any part of this extensive report.
Well, I just want to make a comment on what you just talked about. People in the public need to understand that although we're applying for a lot of grants, we have to put that number in the budget. If we get the grant, that it works, and we get to build or whatever we're doing with the grant. And if we don't get the grant, we obviously don't spend the money. So
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that
number may
clarification.
look really big, but unless we're extremely lucky and get all the grants, it probably will not be really big.
Well, and there's some additional things that we're planning to share with council too. So most of the grants we're applying for, if we don't receive the grants, we would not be doing the project. Some of the projects, though, we would be budgeting for a much smaller portion of that, and that will be pointed out. And then there's some other considerations we're taking this year. If we get a grant and we have something already budgeted for a portion of that, what are some additional projects that are on the list that could be bumped up? So there are a lot of moving parts to this budget this year, more than normal, so that will also be in consideration and shared with council as we move forward in the budget process.
Stay on your toes. Okay, who's got questions about the executive report?
I got a bunch of them. Go ahead.
No, we go first.
She has one comment, go ahead.
Mayor gets to choose who goes first, and he said you.
All right. Are we gonna like all go through it, like whatever we have? Okay.
Whatever you got, it's your
All right.
shot.
Quick question for Chief. I know we talked about some other stuff online. I don't want to get into ongoing investigations, some stuff like that. But quick question about a few things on the Group A offenses, right? 45 impersonation. Can you, what is that? Normally, is it
where is
obviously
that?
somebody impersonating somebody, but
So that would be a subcategory of like identity theft.
Okay.
Type stuff. So just a little explanation on the report, as you'll see, previously in UCR reporting, you only reported the highest level of offense.
Okay.
So as an example, if you had a kidnapping and an ag assault that all occurred to one person, you would only report the kidnapping in the reporting. It all gets reported in this particular NIBRS report now. So
Okay.
all offenses that happen in one event will be reported on this. So that when you start looking at that, as you see, it's within the fraud and the identity theft area. So that's where that would come in.
gotcha, thank you. The next one, I know it's a big area in other areas. The theft of motor vehicle parts, accessories, 10 of them there. Is that catalytic converters particularly, or is it? Like,
The catalytic converter didn't start till this year.
okay,
So this is reported for 2021.
okay,
But it would be theft from any parts,
Okay.
tires, any other motor parts, those kind of things would happen
Cool.
from that.
thank you. That's all I have for that. Appreciate that, Chief.
Before you
Yeah,
go to
go
the
ahead.
next part,
Go ahead.
just since you're, is it normal for there to be zero cleared? There were some on here, like there's 19 reported rapes, but 0 cleared. Is that?
That's what we talked about.
Yeah,
That-
that can be, it can be sensitive. So in Sierra Vista, the vast majority of those reports are known suspects. So the investigations can be very difficult to develop probable cause to make arrests. Most of those cases go to the county attorney for review. And this would be an example of one claiming sexual assault and the suspect claiming it was consensual, and then being able to prove those type of things. So there are ongoing investigations. These are carried over to the next year. A lot of them do go over. It is unusual to have 0, although it can happen in Sierra Vista based on the type of reports that we have and where they are in the investigations.
That's what I was trying to figure out. Is it usual?
It would also be currently under the new statute. Somebody can make the report. Say they go to Lori's place, they make the report, but they don't want to pursue. We have to take the report, but then we are not pursuing an
I read
investigation
that.
at that point, right? Until that person decides they want to.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, when it comes to Operation Safe Streets Task Force, how is that affecting our Cecom numbers? That call volume, is that included in there? Is it separate right now? I know it's like, that's a newer task force as well, but is that gonna be a future trend probably where it's gonna have a different, separate column, or is it all gonna be part of that?
So it's actually reported as part of each individual agency stats,
Okay.
probably on their calls for service. Is how Cecom typically does that. It does increase their overall numbers in
Right.
terms of that. However, it is also, those are basically based on traffic stops and those
Right.
kind of things we'd normally be making anyway, under
Anyway,
Stone
right.
Guard and those type of things, so.
Okay, thank you. Station 204, real quick, Chief. When it says, obviously, we're all happy with the progress. Can you just talk about the manning plan for that real quick? Because we talked about the EMS supervisor, and just talk about real quick how we're gonna man that.
Mayor Mueller, Councilman Rodriguez, the staffing projection for that so far is going to be a medic unit. We're unsure right now. We don't know till we don't know about how we're going to staff that. It's either going to be firefighter EMS personnel, 2 EMS personnel, 2 firefighter personnel. It really depends on staffing.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then for the station alerting, I really appreciate that people like Susan Papatrafon and Sharon Gillen were part of that, right? Is that gonna include the red and white ramped up